You're ready to trademark some things in your business, but you're not sure what steps to take. Well, that's what we're discussing in today's video, where we walk you through the steps that you need to do in order to get these trademarks. The first thing to consider when you are creating a new business name or podcast, course, basically when you're naming or creating a logo or tagline for anything is whether it's available. And the best way to know whether something is available is to do some searches both on the USPTO.gov website through what's called the TESS system, the Trademark Electronic Search System, and also just a good old Google search with quotes around the exact phrase or name that you're considering. Some hints here. We want to make sure this is a name or phrase that's worth registering or pursuing registration as a trademark. Some trademarks are stronger than others, and you'll want to consider that when you are doing these searches and thinking up names. So for example, a fruit that's associated with a computer company is not normally what you would originally associate. Like if you saw just a regular old picture of an apple sitting on a counter, you probably would think that it maybe belongs to a household or a farmer or something like that. But by taking a piece of fruit, aka an apple, out of context and adding their little zhuzh to it with the bite, they have made a world famous trademark, arguably one of the strongest in the world. So this is what's called an arbitrary mark. So apples have nothing to do with computers until the Apple company made them associated with computers. That's a really strong trademark. Arbitrary marks are awesome, but sometimes they're not the first ones that you think of, just because it is a little bit more difficult to get someone to associate something arbitrary that has nothing to do with what you sell with the product, business, or offer that you have. It takes a lot more time and resources and money to make that association for your customers. But once the association is there, it's obviously a very strong one that is difficult for someone to say that they thought of it themselves. So let's compare Apple to what I see a lot in, say, the online or coaching industries, where people will come up with pretty weak trademark. Things like the online coach school, which is literally a school about becoming an online coach. That's super weak. And so while we understand what it is, technically trademark terms call this a descriptive mark, it's not very strong because anybody is going to use that phrase to describe their school that trains new online coaches. We want something that's a little bit more personalized to your brand and business. So for example, if I called my online coach school the Scalera Online Coach School, that would be a little bit better because I could get that Scalera part of the name registered as a trademark, possibly the whole name, but I'd have to disclaim the Online Coach School because obviously that's pretty generic and descriptive and we don't want that. The reason why we don't want something super descriptive is because when people go to search for the name of your very descriptive school or trademark, whatever that looks like, they are going to find a million different results versus if you add your name or a descriptive word or some kind of adjective in there that people wouldn't normally associate with whatever your product is. In this case, I'm using the example of online coach schools. Like if we use the watercolor online coach school, that would help people to find your result, and therefore people would be less likely to buy from your competitors because when they search the watercolor or the Scalera online coach school, they are going to find exactly what they're looking for instead of a competitor's product. Once you know a name is available, it's time to apply for a registration. My favorite kind of registration to apply for is a little more expensive. It's $100 more expensive, but it really helps you, especially if you're starting out, because it helps you to avoid any kind of infringement lawsuit. So this is a special kind of registration called a 1B, as in boy, registration, otherwise known as an ITU, which stands for Intent to Use registration. Typically, these are for new or forthcoming offers that aren't available yet. And the reason why I love them so much is because a lot of people will get themselves into trouble registering the regular way, which is a 1A, as an alpha way. And the reason they get themselves in trouble is because on the 1A application, they write down the date of first use. And if there's anybody else out there that has the same or a similar trademark that has prior use to you, you've just admitted on a federal database that you are possibly infringing their mark and given them a lot of ammunition to come after you. So by registering as a 1B, as in boy mark, even though it's a little bit more expensive on the back end, it will help you to avoid avoid those infringement suits. One caveat here is that if you have been using the name of your podcast or program that you're aiming to register, if you've been using that for a really long time, it's probably time to go see a trademark attorney because the 1B registration isn't going to be available to you, and there's a lot of extra hurdles for you to overcome as far as the search and strategy, just to make sure that that name is available. Once I've filled out this 1B application and I've paid the fee, now I get to sit back and wait and see if I get what's called a notice of allowance. And if that happens, I get to take a screenshot of whatever it is that I am registering and show them that I am finally using it. And I have a long time to do that, especially if I keep extending, but every time you extend, just FYI, it costs you some money. So you have really up to 2.5 years to show them that you're using this mark. If there's a name or a phrase or something like that that you want to use, the 1B registration is also really helpful because it gives you a little extra runway time to get that offer or that podcast, whatever it might be, out there into the world. When you're finally using it and you file something called a statement of use, which is just what it sounds, you're actually using it, so you take a screenshot, you send it into the USPTO, the trademark office, and you say, hey, look, I'm using this. At that point, they'll either accept that screenshot, aka your specimen, and if they do, then that's really great news for you because it means that you get to go forward and get a registration for this thing. If they don't accept it, you're gonna have to work with the assigned trademark examiner who is looking at your application, and while they can't give you much help, they can give you some. So you can always email or call them and get some help on your application if you're struggling along. Or if you just want someone to take this all off your plate, of course, at the contract shop, we have a great resource for that. It's called Trademarks on Tap. And anytime you need to tap into a new trademark, you can go through that course. That way you stay on top of everything and cross all the T's, dot all the I's, etc. We take the burden right out of your hands and we make sure that you understand exactly what you're doing, even if you're applying for trademarks on your own and DIYing it. From start to finish, the entire trademark process can take anywhere from 3 months to 3 years. And of course, the 3 months is if you're just going right along, getting your products out into the world, taking the screenshots, sending the statement of use. And of course, the 3 years is if you are just kind of sitting on your hands, dragging your feet, taking some time, or if you run into any kind of problems and the examiner has to help you through those. If you want to keep learning about trademarks, check out my next video, which is all about trademarks versus copyrights. We'll break down the difference between trademarks and copyrights for you so that you know exactly what you need to get and when.